kule Mozambique, kule. Bangwani banga fikiti ndambe, kule Mozambique, kule. Bangwani banga fikiti ndambe, kule.
This is Mozambique, a rising star among African nations. A country of lush beauty, colonial architecture, and thatched-roofed huts. The cities are vibrant, the villages pastoral and peaceful. The miles of pristine seashore are fast becoming the new vacation spot in southern Africa. The economy of Mozambique is at last booming. Its elections and political stability over the past decade have made it a poster boy for international aid. Prosperity, however, is taking longer to filter down to the village folk, where most still live in extreme poverty. After decades of international aid, rural Mozambicans still have a huge struggle on their hands. Malaria, hepatitis, typhoid fever, and diarrhea remain mass killers. And then there is AIDS. Almost every family will have a member who will die from this pandemic that continues to be the scourge of Africa. Jerry Dixon, a Canadian professor from the University of Saskatchewan, has been working with Mozambique's poor for more than 2 decades. Her colleague, Ruta Masungini, is also a rarity in the countryside. She's an educated professional Mozambican. Their jobs are to make Mozambique a healthier country. They hope to accomplish this through an education and wellness program that is seeded by Canadian money and set to an African beat. Jerry and Ruta are in the village of Taveli, which today has been turned into a teaching laboratory. Gathered here are community activists, health workers from around the country, and their teachers. Under the guidance of Jerry and Ruta, they are finding ways to come together so everyone understands the needs of the community.
What we try and do is to choose really interesting exercises that make people think and feel and do all at the same time. So it's kind of a complex learning process.
The goal of the process is the identification of Taveli's most serious diseases and a plan to prevent them. Delivering such simple lessons would have been impossible a decade ago in a country that has seen more than its share of trouble and strife. Even the name of this village conjures up the violence of the past, when warlords and mercenaries murdered and plundered with impunity. For 500 years, the Portuguese exploited Mozambique in one of the worst examples of colonial rule. The country was drained of its gold, its ivory, and even its people. By the time slavery was abolished, more than 1 million Mozambicans had been sold as chattel. Even after slavery ended, black Mozambicans did not prosper in their own country. They worked for another century as serfs for Portuguese plantation owners. There was little thought given to their basic needs. They were denied access to health care, education, and opportunity.
I was the only black person in my class. I was asked to sit in the back because they say that the black always have a special smell. The black people, maximum they could go until third grade, that's all. There was hospitals where indigenous people, they would just have no access. And also, most of the births, they were delivered at homes. And all the medical people, all the nurses, doctors, they're all Portuguese.
The Portuguese maintained their stranglehold on the country until 1964. That was the start of a 10-year guerrilla struggle led by the Liberation Front of Mozambique, known as Frelimo. Finally, on June 25, 1975, the country gained its independence with great celebrations. But many of the Portuguese had shipped out, leaving almost nothing in working order. Much of the country's infrastructure, including its medical equipment, had been dismantled or destroyed. Following decades of racist educational practices, there were almost no health professionals left in the country. Yet for the new, independent government, looking after the physical well-being of its citizens finally became a priority. Antonio Tanda was one of the few educated black Mozambicans, and he rose quickly through the ranks of the Ministry of Health. For more than 20 years, he's dedicated his life to improving rural health care.
Part of the strategy of Ministry of Health after independence to really train middle health workers to be at the front line in whole rural areas of Mozambique.
The strategy worked. A few years after independence, a vaccination program visited 90% of the rural areas. Even though the program failed to reach all of the people, the infant mortality rate fell 20%. But these gains were soon wiped out. Just 4 years after winning a bloody 10-year battle for freedom from Portugal, Mozambique found itself again in the throes of violence. This time a civil war that would kill more than 1 million people. In 1980, Renamo, a right-wing paramilitary group, began to attack rural settlements. The guerrillas were backed by the racist government of white-ruled Rhodesia and apartheid South Africa. These regimes could not allow their next-door neighbor to succeed in its socialist policies. They armed the terrorists and paid for the mercenaries. For 13 years, rural people suffered the worst nightmares imaginable.
Kumphela swivanana, kumphela hina vanhu va hombe, a vavanuna, a vavasati, a swifuyo, tihomu, timbuti, makhumba, o va lexi xi nga hi xa ku dyiwa.
Ni tiwa mina kambe maxi a vanhu lava lomun'wani I ya dawula malova va daya va pandza va humesa marhumbu lomun'wani va pandza hela va dawula va mwangala tomi ka ku godle leswo na byi ka ku yena a ku ndzilela ku ndzi teka xin'wana lexi nga sala le ekabanini.
Ndizoni anuna wa mina I dele hi machanga ndzi nga ta wula hi vito anuna wa mina a dawa le khatuku le na va sekela ha cooperative hi rangile hina hi khomuka hi akaya hi xa vona hi swi tsalatsalana swo khwa hi swilo va ngiselana hi tsaletela leswi swi nga tirhiwa nyamutlha laha kaya laha lomu masin'wini va sala va tsaletela va tsaleteriwa ku ve xivonkhombola jatu.
Just when Mozambicans needed it the most, their healthcare system was ripped apart again.
Health workers and teachers would flee in from the rural areas. It was just at the start of the internal war. Missing noses, missing ears, women missing breasts, and the mercenaries would terrorize the rural areas. And they would target the teachers and the health workers because they were the trained people.
Ruta Masangini is lucky to have escaped the atrocities of the Civil War. She lived in fear for her life and, like all other health workers, became a target of the rebels and mercenaries.
Na vida profissional, eu atender doentes atingidos aqui no hospital, o bandido estava a entrar mesmo para o hospital. Tive que abandonar os doentes, fugimos. Mas era situação de guerra, foi assim. E ao longo da viagem sempre sofria, às vezes, de ataque. Eu passava, queimava um carro, ou antes de eu passar, à frente queimava um carro, depois conseguia passar.
The fighting finally came to an end in 1992. Yet the country is still cleaning up the deadly reminders of the tragic war.
They just finished the mining last month. There was massive landmines around the whole valley, so it was absolutely impossible to do any kind of community work.
Mozambique is a developing country. It has all of the indicators a developing country. High maternal death rate, high infant, high children's under 5 death rates. So infectious diseases are very, very, very common, and people die. People get sick and people die. There are far, far, far too few trained health workers. The country is supposed to have, getting close to 20 million now, 18 to 20 million. There are about 17,000 health workers. Only maximum 60% of those have any kind of training at all. The rest are just servant-type staff who end up being like nurses, because that's the only people around. There is not the infrastructure, nor is there the resources to adequately provide drugs, sterile materials, any kind of supplies.
With 70% of the population living in extreme poverty, Mozambique's economy is one of the world's worst. The United Nations Human Development Index ranks Mozambique 171st out of 177 countries. Much of the country's budget comes from foreign aid and development loans, for which it owes billions of dollars. And when the money arrives, there can be a lot of skimming. For some humanitarian projects, corruption remains a major sin. Donor funds for this long-abandoned hospital at Masinga were mismanaged, and the contractor walked away.
All of the adult wards and the emergency department were taken apart. Every day, hundreds of people come. They wait for their dental appointment, their medical appointment, their physiotherapy appointment. So it's terrible. And of course the health workers get demoralized because they know that they can't cope with that many people, and the conditions are so poor.
For years, Horacio Mandivo has been helping develop a very different health facility in Masinga. He's working with Canadians to establish the Masinga Training for Health Center and its philosophy of community outreach. He sees the program as a way to tune in health workers to the dire needs of rural people.
Our mandate is to raise consciousness and health workers. It's easy to say that, but to do, it's so hard.
Dr. Arlette Mariano has just graduated from medical school in the capital. She came to this remote health post where 90% of the patients are HIV positive. She's quickly learning the realities of delivering healthcare in rural Mozambique.
Não temos dinheiro, fundos ainda não chegaram e tem muitas dívidas por energia, telefones já cortaram, energia já vieram, apesar que vão cortar.
Quanto é que é mais ou menos já pagaste?
8 milhões.
8 milhões.
Está a fatura?
While coping with overwhelming illness all around her, Dr. Arlette doesn't know how the hospital will pay its electric bill of 8 million meticas. At the current exchange rate, that's less than $400. There's a simple reason for Mozambique's health woes. It's underdevelopment. The vast majority of people are subsistent farmers. The unemployment rate is well over 20%. 70% of the women and 40% of the men cannot read or write. The Mozambican government does run an extensive health program in the countryside. Children are now being immunized and infants are receiving checkups earlier than ever. Senior Raul Lott and his assistant are government health workers, and they're on their way to the village of Malova. During their short visit, they will immunize as many babies as they can. The immunization program is a success, but as Senior Lott knows only too well, no vaccine has been invented that can eradicate the worst killers, diarrhea, malaria, and AIDS. With few tools to prevent or treat these diseases, Mozambique's infant mortality rate remains one of the highest in the world. Because Senior Lott is so busy making sure the children and infants are vaccinated, he has little time to talk to people to discuss the root causes of their illnesses.
Até aqui, ainda é difícil as pessoas perceberem o porquê que nós temos que sentar, ouvir e depois tomarmos decisões conjuntas. As pessoas estão habituadas, pronto, nós, por exemplo, vamos à vacinação, pega Coleman e material de vacinação, chega lá, forma bicho, vacina.
The people in the village of Kangela are lucky because they have their own full-time health worker, Laura Lucas. She works out of a small health post, the only treatment center in the entire region. Patients walk for hours to get to the post and then wait for hours more to be helped. Laura was trained as a midwife, but now must treat all manner of disease. She's often overwhelmed by the problems she meets every day.
O problema mais existente nesta área aqui é a malária, diarreias. Tenho medicamentos para vir, tenho que levar aqueles medicamentos de chapa para a estrada, da estrada para cá a cabeça. Sim. E a comunicação também, como aquele telefone meu, às vezes não tenho crédito, mas tenho doentes aqui.
The solution of the health problems in Mozambique or in poor countries in the world is not to build lots of health centers in every kilometer. It's not. It's to educate the people. To get the people involved in taking decisions on their own health.
This is the philosophy behind the Health Renewal Program, which is funded by the Canadian International Development Agency. The goal is straightforward, to get rural people involved in solving their own health problems. Two Canadians have worked many years in Mozambique, Jerry Dixon, a professor of nursing in Saskatchewan, and her husband Murray, a dentist, have been with the Health Renewal Program from the beginning.
My family and I have been involved in Mozambique for 25 years now. And we chose Mozambique because of the struggle it was going through post-independence.
From a distance, you can identify with liberation movements, anti-apartheid movement. But the next step is to involve yourself more meaningfully. And so I think there were many people throughout the world who decided that the next logical step was to come to Mozambique, and which we did.
My youngest sister visited.
Antonio Tanda first met Jerry and Murray Dixon in the mid-1980s, just before Tanda became Mozambique's Director of Dentistry. When it comes to healthcare, he was as outspoken then as he is today.
We have problems to find food, problems, for instance, with the war, the bandits, from South Africa. All these problems together, they put them little depressed,
We are trying to gain what we had lost during the war process. We are trying to bring our health worker back to the communities.
To achieve this goal, the Canadian government began in 1985 to fund a program aimed at upgrading the skills of people who worked in dentistry. 3 groups of Mozambicans traveled to Saskatchewan for instruction. When funding for that program ended in 1997, the Mozambicans asked that it be extended to cover all types of health care. To put into practice the gospel of wellness, the Canadian government once again sponsored a course of study at the University of Saskatchewan. It was a year the Mozambicans would never forget. While the Mozambicans were studying new ways to bring healthcare to their countryside, the Canadians were trying to instill new ways of thinking.
There's a little bit of seriousness there, which there should be.
In this session, Jerry Dixon is exploring gender inequality, a feature of Mozambican society that has long impacted the health of the population and continues to fuel the rapid spread of HIV.
Women's traditional roles must be respected.
I don't know.
Gender issues in Mozambique, like many countries, are quite difficult to deal with. The women knew that this was something that had to be dealt with, and the men were very dismissive of it. This is the microphone, and I'm an interviewer. Thank you. So a traditional role for José means that the women or the girls don't go to school, stay at home and take care of the farm and the family.
In family, yes. The traditional role of the woman must be changed.
All right, thank you. What about somebody in the middle here? Susanna.
Yeah, I mean...
Much of what the Mozambicans learned from their Saskatchewan experience takes place outside the classroom. Here, Horacio Mendivo is learning to lead a warm-up. It's designed to allow groups of people to get to know each other quickly. The Mozambicans will use the exercise back home to break the ice with groups of health workers they're assigned to train.
To solve, first I needed to understand why. It's not just looking for problem, looking for solution. I needed something why that kind of problem happening. That was good learning that I have in Canada. To understanding, but why?
During her work placement, Ruta studies how Canada deals with its own hunger problems. She's told that programs such as this food cooperative succeed because they're run and managed by the people they serve.
Esta transformação, para mim, surgiu no momento em que fui fazer o curso do ensino. É certo que eu trabalhava com a comunidade, mas eu trabalhava para a comunidade.
I always use the analogy of having a flower at night with the petals closed up and then turning to the sun during the day and having the petals open up. That's literally how I see them. Their vision of what health is and what their role is has just expanded remarkably.
In the middle of their winter in Canada, the Mozambicans learned that a calamity has struck their homeland. Tropical rains pounded the country for days, causing the worst floods in 150 years. Hundreds were killed in the muddy surges, and in the weeks following, thousands more died from drinking contaminated water. Stranded in Canada, the Mozambican healthcare workers are far from home just when their country needs them most. They have to do something and decide to form a choir. They perform on the radio and at concerts, bringing attention to the disaster and raising money for the victims. The Canadians love them. After 15 months in Saskatchewan, the Mozambicans graduate. Now it's time to return to family and friends and to do their part in making Mozambique a healthier place to live. 4 years after graduating, the members of the Health Renewal team are now seasoned professionals. Today, they're returning from South Africa after completing another skills upgrading course. Since leaving Canada, Ruta, Horacio, and their colleagues have begun to work with other countries, spreading the word of the grassroots approach to healthcare.
The transition is very obvious because I remember I knew most of the people, Horacio, Ruta, and others. When they came back, I couldn't really recognize them because they are much more community-oriented, they're much more proactive to develop programs to really devote to more communities.
Before they return to the countryside, Ruta and Horacio enjoyed the sights and sounds of Maputo, the capital of Mozambique. Compared to the village of Taveli, the capital, with its air-conditioned malls and consumer goods, seems to be in another, more prosperous world. Since the end of the Civil War, 3 relatively peaceful elections have been held. Frelimo, the former guerrilla movement, has won each election with a healthy majority, while Renamo, the former rebel group, has formed the opposition. Mozambique's economic growth rate now ranks near the top at 21st in the world, and this new prosperity can be seen in parts of Maputo. In recent years, the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank have provided much-needed development loans. The country now owes $3 billion and has little hope of ever being able to repay it. And the loans are conditional, requiring the government to limit spending on social programs. For people living in the crowded slums around Maputo and in the countryside, there have been few tangible benefits from the booming economy. For them, Mozambique remains one of the poorest and unhealthiest of countries. Most health professionals would prefer life in the bustling city, and Ruta and her colleagues are no exception. Yet they know that 70% of the population lives in the countryside, and that is where their services are needed most. It takes 7 hours to drive from the capital Maputo to the town of Masinga, a distance of 500 kilometers that is best driven only during daylight. Masinga, the regional capital, is little more than a truck stop on the main highway. As the truckers roll through, they leave HIV behind. Crime is rampant. Life here is anything but easy for educated professionals like Ruta.
Bene. Bene. Acorda aí, papá.
Ruta is one of the project's most important players. She's a highly skilled nurse, an experienced trainer, and an administrator. She's also a single parent to her son Benny. Balancing the demands of her career with the needs of her family in this dusty town is not easy. She's also had to put her faith into new foreign ideas and concepts about working with rural communities.
Mozambique trusts the way we operate now. They know the kind of work that we do. When the senior official for Mozambique was here last year, he said, "We like the way Canadians work. They teach us to fish. They don't give us fish."
After years of fits and starts, the Masinga Training Center is finally on a solid foundation. New dormitories and a cafeteria are being built for students.
People crowded outside.
waiting to wash their hands because people are standing here drying their hands. So we need.
We are working very hard to develop the place, but we still shortage of the housing. We would like to have a more house in order to accommodate more people.
The training center, built with donations mainly from the Canadian Auto Workers Union and the Canadian government, serves as a base for housing students, planning courses, and administering the program. Yet the most important lessons aren't taught in classrooms. They take place in villages like Tavali.
There's no way that we can reach 17,000 health workers in this country. But what we would like to do is develop an approach with a clear connection between the health system and community. We need people in the community to teach the health workers and build up a relationship and tackling the principal problem that they identified, which was malaria.
Less than half of Mozambique's babies are born with the help of skilled health practitioners, a major reason why 101 will die for every 1,000 births. By the time these babies reach age 5, another 147 will have died. For adults, the stats are just as frightening. Life expectancy here is less than 40 years. One of the main villains is the common mosquito and the killer disease, malaria, that it carries. The Health Renewal team worked with outlying villagers to find simple solutions. Placing netting around beds, for example, is an easy fix that helps prevent malaria. Cleaning up dumps of coconut husks where the insects breed will also prevent many deaths. The program's work also involves a lot of role-playing to get its message across. Student health workers here are pretending they are already on the job and are being taught to avoid the typical unpleasant demeanor of conventional health workers.
Health professionals are rude. They don't express any compassion. They're curt. So what we're trying to do is put a human face back to that community connection. What we're trying to enact is how should it be done best? We want a respectful engagement. What kinds of questions should you ask? How should you counsel this family? Then we break up the group into the health workers over here and the community people here. And then they develop questions that they would like to pose to one another. For example, how come you as a health worker prescribe drugs that aren't available? That's a good question.
The answer, of course, is there is little money, and healthcare workers are poorly trained, so there are few drugs for the ill. In the next 10 years, the country hopes to see at least half its population earn more than $1 a day. For now, role-playing is especially helpful when discussing the taboo subjects surrounding the spread of the mass killer, HIV.
Choosing a type of sexual prevention, whether it's abstinence, fidelity, or condom use, is a very personal kind of decision, and we don't always talk about those kinds of things in public. So we set out 3 boats, and these are called boats of hope. So you can choose the boat of abstinence, fidelity, or condom use. We have a set of about 30 figures, plasticized figures of all kinds of ages, both sexes, and people pick one of those that is different from them. So if I'm a young woman, I pick an old man. And then we go around in a circle, and each person depicts a story. So I am Antonio, I'm an old man, I mostly work in my garden, and I have no interest in sex anymore, I'm a widower, and so I choose the boat of abstinence. It allows you to make a decision on a method of prevention, not based on your personal values or your personal situation, but what that person would choose. I think everybody in the world knows the threat of HIV, AIDS, in Africa. The way that we will look at gender in relation to HIV is that we've chosen a tool called One Day in the Life of a Woman, One Day in the Life of a Man. We ask them to start thinking about a typical woman in Taveli. What time does she get up? 4:35 in the morning. What does she do first? Well, she probably takes a bucket on her head and goes to the nearest water source, which could be a long way away. She fills up with water, and then she comes back. Okay, so what little prop could we put down on the start of a line on the ground or on a mat? What will symbolize that first task of her day? And then what does she do next? Well, she probably starts the fire. Then she probably sweeps the compound to make sure it's nice and clean when everybody gets up. She could start doing some laundry. She'll prepare food for the family. She might have to go to the garden to collect some sweet potato or some cassava. And so you string out visually her whole day, which starts very early and usually finishes very late. And then they say, whoa, you know, women really do a lot of things, which they may not have appreciated. And then we say, okay, let's make a parallel 24 hours and do One Day in the Life of a Man. Well, and you know, no slam to men in general, but usually the tasks are much fewer, the day is much shorter, there's a lot more free time. He often goes off to the local bazaar at some point towards the end of the afternoon, has a couple of cups of something, comes home, has some dinner already prepared, and goes to bed. So there's all kinds of chatting that goes on, and you know, some light bulbs go on. Then the next, to link it with the HIV, we say, where might she be at risk for contacting HIV? Are there any things that she does during her day that put her at risk? So we ask them to go back over the 24 hours and identify risks and resources for HIV.
The feedback that we receive, it's so good. And people said, yeah, that is something maybe we can take back to our hospitals to work with the communities. Maybe some things can change there.
Once the health workers have received their training from the Health Renewal Program, they're supposed to return to the villages to put their newfound skills into practice.
It's easy to sit in a health post, in a health clinic, just wait for the people to come to you and treat them. It's very easy. Going out of the institution, that's the most difficult. That's the reason of the existence of the health worker.
It's the same in rural Saskatchewan, rural Canada. Rural areas are considered to be deprived. Most health workers, once they leave their rural areas, come in for training and get their careers going. They don't go back out.
These student nurses are from several different provinces. Tomorrow, they will have their first experience in a village.
For many of them, it's the first time that they've gone back out. And sometimes they have to be persuaded.
Daya Cipriano was one of those students who needed persuading. Now he's an important member of the staff at the Masinga Training Center.
The first time I went to Taveli, when I came here for training, it was a challenge for myself. I asked, but what we are going to spend the night in Taveli, so why? Why I have to spend night in Taveli? I have my home and I have bed. Why I have to sleep on the mat? By the time I start to understand that we need some time to feel what the community feel. And from that we can understand what's affecting the health. It's a big challenge.
De certeza era antes de praticar, mesmo ver a própria prática. Mais isso, saber o que passa com a comunidade fora, além da cidade. Aprendemos, só que o que faltava só era ver na prática.
It's not only the outside professionals that are given lessons in community development, village residents are also given training. The community selected Katerina, and the Health Renewal Program coordinated her training. She's now the lone healthcare worker at the Taveli Medical Post, the only treatment center for miles around.
O que está me dificultar até agora é a compreensão das pessoas, porque as pessoas, a população quase de Taveli, não compreende o que quer dizer posto. Estão a pegar o posto como hospital central. Lá mamala, o tamanho que aqui na guinha mul, que uma ali tinha mul, uma que uma ali tinha manzico.
The health professionals training with the Health Renewal Program are taught to respect village elders and their traditions. Maria is a healer who uses ancient ways and mysterious natural medicines in her practice. She has a large following among the villagers. Today, Ruta is visiting Maria to follow up on a recent lecture on HIV. Traditional healers sometimes apply the remedies by making cuts in a patient's skin.
Because we had their training about how to prevent HIV. And so I went to visit her.
Maria is beginning to understand that her skin cutting technique can cause the spread of HIV if she doesn't use a clean blade for each patient. Francisco is another traditional healer. He uses a combination of herbal medicines and spiritualism. The plants that grow near his home are used to treat many different ailments.
We know that some plant that they use, they call batata africana, they use to give people who has HIV to help them to create the immunity.
When Francisco comes across a snake trying to get into his hut, he performs a traditional ceremony. He buries its head at his front door as a warning for other snakes. Throughout the ceremony, the educated Ruta remains respectful.
I think now they feel like we are brother and sister.
Midwives are another important resource for the healthcare of rural Mozambique. In the village of Taveli, for example, Laura has been practicing the art for years. Laura has been an enthusiastic participant in the Health Renewal Program and has learned many new midwifery techniques. But it's not a one-way lesson. She's also a community activist who relishes her part in the village's role-playing exercises with the more educated healthcare trainees. Today, the Health Renewal Program is turning another village into a teaching lab. This time, the team is heading to the village of Basso.
One of the first things that we do when we go to a new community is we get to know each other. And one of the ways we get to know each other is to get to know the area physically. So we spend lots and lots of days, lots and lots of hot hours, walking, looking at where the limits are of each of the sub-districts, identifying where the schools are, where the rivers are, where people's homes are, where the good farming land is. And then at the end of each of the sessions, we'll come back and we will map out, initially on the ground here, we'll map out and make sure we get our boundaries right. Really good exercise because it precipitates a lot of discussion. People will say, no, 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 that area is bigger than this area. No, 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 that one is bigger than this one. And no, the river goes there and it touches my land and it touches your land. It contributes to health because unless we know people, unless we know where they live, how their family structures get together, what their source of livelihood is, we can't do anything more with health. We have a small team here, we have a small support staff. If something happens to anybody, then it just fractures what we're attempting to do. Today, our driver, on whom we depend a lot, had a really critical incident. We don't even have in our hospital the equipment or the supplies to test his blood sugar. So he had to be quickly taken to the mission hospital, which is about 70 kilometers from here. And it took Tanda, because somebody had to drive. Ruta had to go to a company to make sure he didn't have an incident during the trip. And then, just as we were leaving the hospital, the head of maternity ran over and said she had 2 women in difficult delivery, and we don't have any operating room facilities here. So Tanda drove these 3 people to this hospital, 70 kilometers away, and it's a bad road. So half of our whole day with 3 team members just evaporated.
The future of the Health Renewal Program is not entirely certain. It faces serious challenges to become a sustainable, permanent teaching facility under Mozambique's Ministry of Health. Meanwhile, the government of Ireland is now contributing to healthcare in this rural area. It's funding the full construction of Masinga's half-built abandoned hospital. So while things continue to improve, the pace is awfully slow. For Jerry Dixon, the frustrations at times seem endless.
I'm working in a different culture and I'm using a different language. Almost every day I say, should I be here? Am I doing the right thing? Probably once every 24 hours I have this little doubt that comes up. And then it goes.
Antonio Tanda remains optimistic about his life's work. He's hoping the Health Renewal Program will become a model for others in the country.
We wanted to bring the training institution close to the people, to the rural areas. We want to make partnership with the really rural communities.
Ruta has other priorities in her life. There's her young son and her retirement to think about. She's already built a small home on the coast, some 70 kilometers from Masinga, in the village where she was born.
When I retire, my wish is to leave something for my kids I'm getting old.
Horacio is worried about a future after international aid. He only hopes that the Health Renewal Program's philosophy of community involvement will last.
It's necessary to have respect with the communities, respect with colleagues. Using this respect way, we can achieve our goals.
In the end, the legacy of the Health Renewal Program will be determined by forces far from the villages and the people it's aimed at helping. The policies of the Mozambican government and the continuing largesse of international funding bodies are key, leaving the people of Masinga, Taveli, and Baso to dream of a healthy future.
jahe ku navela ka mina loko swileleti leswi ndza tsaka ngopfu hi ku navela ku u ngo ku byela ku manzi ku na monkwana
He went a money. unganditwela usiwano, unganditwela usiwano ya, unganditwela usiwano, unganditwela usiwano ye. Unzipanya unzikuma unziyambesha na 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 na, unzinyika untomi unzisasekisa mine. Unzipanya unzikuma unziyambesha na 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 na, unzinyika untomi unzisasekisa mine.